Hello, you're listening to The Rewatchables 1999 from Luminary Media, the show that talks about the greatest movies of 1999. I'm Amanda Dobbins.
I'm Juliette Littman.
And we are just two girls sitting in front of microphones asking you to listen to this podcast. This is Notting Hill.
There's something wrong with this yogurt.
It's mayonnaise.
There we are then.
She rescued him from a life without magic.
Oh my god. My flatmate.
Hi.
Thank you, God.
Can he rescue her
Today's been a good day.
from a life of success?
The fame thing isn't really real.
Julia Roberts, Hugh Grant,
I wouldn't go outside.
Why not?
Notting Hill.
Juliette,
So excited.
we did it. We managed to live our lives to a point where we can talk about Notting Hill for work.
I'm so excited. What a great, great movie.
I feel like professionally, I have been leading to this point in a lot of ways.
I don't even know what to say. I just want to share that when I went to go watch this movie again, I watched it from the Stars app, which is one of our faves.
Still on there. It's
Still
been
on
on Stars for like a year. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, mine restarted at the 49-minute mark, and I couldn't remember like at what point I had fallen asleep watching it. Also weird because I bought that movie on iTunes, like have it on my phone like at all times, like just to watch whenever.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a great 2:30 a.m. movie. I can't sleep.
Can you estimate the count on the number of times you've watched Notting Hill?
I'm going to put it in like the 80s, like 84 to 87
Okay,
range.
yeah.
How about you?
I think I'm probably above 50. I don't know if that's a complete view. It's always interesting when we do rewatchables and like I do dutifully go and start from the beginning and I'm like, I haven't seen the credits of this movie in a while.
One thing we can talk about later in the pod is I love the last scene of this movie, and I feel like I often don't get there to the final press conference. And actually, it's like a really good rom-com ending. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, so we're going to do all of the categories that we do on rewatchables and we'll talk about Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant and rom-coms in general. But first, I wanted to start this with a question for you.
Okay, great.
Notting Hill, released 20 years ago, 1999, directed by Roger Mitchell, written by Richard Curtis. Rewatching this last night, is this a top 10 rom-com of all time?
I think top 5.
Top 5?
I think it's top 5.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. And it's interesting because in a lot of ways, it's a comment on romantic comedies and it has some significant deviations from the general script, which we'll talk about. But I think it's like a tremendous movie and really holds up.
Really holds up. I was trying to think of what age the worst, which again we'll get to. Not that many nominees. It's also really quiet. Like it's one of the reasons it's so good is because it's not like a flashy movie.
Yeah.
It's very much mirrors Hugh Grant's personality in this movie.
Yes.
Will's personality, I guess I should say.
Yeah, so let's start with that. So this comes out in 1999, hence the title of this podcast, which it's a really interesting in Julia Roberts' career. We'll get to that. But Hugh Grant, I forgot, this is basically the movie that solidifies Hugh Grant as a thing.
A little bit of a comeback movie for him. In between Four Weddings and a Funeral and this, it's a little bit of a wilderness, a little bit of him going on a trek. And then from this movie, he's just like comedy guy, forgot about his scandals, let's just keep it moving and like enjoy him.
Exactly. So we should say Four Weddings and a Funeral came out in 1994, also written by Richard Curtis, who has that kind of witty, dry Britishism style that is, I think, a huge part of the success of this movie.
Definitely.
And Hugh Grant's like the best at Richard Curtis dialogue, so it's a great fit. So that comes out in 1994. Everyone's like, oh, wow, Hugh Grant. What a dreamboat. And then in 1995, he is very famously arrested on Hollywood Boulevard. And that kind of starts this scandal aspect. I don't know how much time we need to spend on that. I just wanted to mention it before.
He's arrested for receiving oral sex from a prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard. Not too far from here.
And it sets up the very, very famous Jay Leno interview, which like somehow Hugh Grant still agrees to go out on Jay Leno.
What a different
after
time.
this, truly. And Jay Leno famously asks him, so what the hell were you thinking is the kind of the first part. And he handles it and eventually moves past it. But I do think you're right that Notting Hill is like a major part of making that happen.
Yeah, definitely. Because that happened, I think, in 96 or 97. And he doesn't really do anything between 96 and 97. He makes a guest appearance on The Nanny, which is one of my favorite episodes in 96. And then he is off the scene until he comes back with Notting Hill. So it's like a big return.
Exactly.
And boy, is it a good one. And him and Julia Roberts at the time of this movie one of the reasons they both agreed to do it was because of how it's like they're both kind of coming out of a few rocky years with the press.
Yes.
And it's very much a commentary on celebrity media and tabloids and like paparazzi culture.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the Julia Roberts of it all. We've talked about Julia before on this podcast. You can listen to the Rewatchables, My Best Friend's Wedding, where we talk about pretty much everything up to 97,
Yes.
which is My Best Friend's Wedding. And there's a ton of
There's a
tabloid
lot.
coverage. There is so much of it. And so My Best Friend's Wedding is 97, and Notting Hill is 2 years after that. And there's not that much in between. There's Conspiracy Theory and Stepmom, which don't sleep on Stepmom.
Great movie.
But
Great New York movie.
it is. But so Notting Hill it's like post comeback because she's gone through all of the tabloid coverage and the bad movies, but it is like still close to the comeback and is also commenting on
Yes.
the past decade in
Yes.
real time.
And part of her press obligations for this movie was she did a big Vanity Fair profile in the June 99 issue which begins with her addressing paparazzi and like the tabloids being wrong about her.
Yeah.
So both Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts are very much in a moment of like kind of taking their narratives back. It's actually very 2019. It's kind
Yes.
of, it's sort of the kind of thing that would happen now. And when you were saying that Hugh Grant would never agree to Jay Leno in 2019.
Right.
It's true. Like he would probably like make a statement on his Instagram account,
Yeah.
go dark, and then do like an as told to for like either a magazine or like something like that. And like he would never neither of them would do the press that they have to.
Absolutely not.
I mean, we just saw Julia Roberts when she was in Homecoming on Amazon. Like she only did like group stuff and Entertainment Weekly, where they often, it's sort of like something that you can
It's
work
like
with the magazine.
It's like the junket that is featured in Notting Hill,
Yes.
which is interesting about it is how prescient this movie is in terms of media and celebrity press narratives, or maybe also like how much things haven't changed. Maybe like
Totally.
the mediums have changed, but the basic coverage has not. This also just in terms of Julia Roberts' career, she does Notting Hill, and this like kind of really is the turning point. After this is Runaway Bride. It's also in 1999. But then the next year is Erin Brockovich, for which she wins the Oscar,
Yes.
finally. I had forgotten when I was rewatching Notting Hill I had forgotten that she wins the Oscar in the course of the break after the second
Yeah.
relationship. And I was like, oh, is that it? I couldn't remember whether it was before or after Erin Brockovich, and it turns out that it was like predictive and
Sure.
has aged very well.
yeah.
And then after that, you've got Ocean's 11, and it kind of starts the late period Julia Roberts as a movie star commenting on herself phase.
Yeah, it's like she kind of grows up with this movie.
Yeah.
And it's a new phase where, for both of them, really, where they just sort of like settle into like not middle age in terms of actual age, but like of their careers, like middle period of both their
Right.
careers, which is prosperous and successful.
Yeah. And this movie also becomes like a major text for both of them in terms of how we understand them and their career choices and their personal lives for like the next 20 years.
Yeah, and it's just
Yeah.
it's so good, and it's actually pretty amazing to think about both of them now as like the adults they are and parents they are in 2019 versus who they were and like the baggage they brought with them in 1999. I kind of find it heartening. It's like, oh, people can change. People like you can have a new phase of your life.
That's true. That's the generous take. The other take is that like you get old and like people don't really care. Also, by the way, Hugh Grant's personal life has not quieted down.
No, it hasn't. Nor has his Twitter. He is a staunch Remain guy.
It's a great Twitter follow. That is how I follow Brexit, is via Hugh Grant. And also whenever they're airing tennis in the UK. But also, like 5 years ago, he has several children now and
Yes.
from 2 different mothers. And, it was like he went back and forth with typical Hugh Grant insouciance. Anyway.
Let's just say that one of his daughters is named Xiao Xi,
Mhm.
and that means happy surprise in Chinese.
Okay, there we go.
So that's where Hugh Grant's at. And I would say he's like a lot less combative. He's definitely in the I don't give a fuck phase, and that's cool.
Yes.
Good for him. He should.
Except for he gives a fuck about Brexit.
Yes.
Which I commend.
About the press and the media, which we'll keep
Yeah.
going back to because it's such a big part of the movie.
Yeah. Before we do the categories, let's just talk about Notting Hill briefly as a romantic comedy.
Okay.
We
I'd
should
love
sort
to.
of defend our stance as it's a great romantic comedy, but it's also interesting time-wise. It comes out in 1999, which is 10 years after When Harry Met Sally, and kind of after a decade of the modern rom-com boom. A lot of really good romantic comedies in those 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, Pretty Woman obviously is 1990, and that introduces Julia Roberts, so that's an important one. Sleepless in Seattle, Four Weddings and a Funeral, which Juliet won't do a rewatchable with me about, but that's okay. It's important to me, and it's important to people who are listening to this. While you were sleeping, your favorite. I'm
Great
mentioning
movie.
One Fine Day, even though it's not good, just
Also
because George Clooney is in it and you love it.
A great New York movie as
and
well.
this is a supportive podcast where
Thank
we
you.
share interests. My Best Friend's Wedding in 97. You've Got Mail in 98, which is the most important one to us, but also The Wedding Singer, and There's Something About Mary. And then in 99, You've got Notting Hill, along with Never Been Kissed, which
I ignore.
I'm skipping also. These are also my personal highlights. There
Sure.
are a lot more.
Sure. There's also a lot of the like teen movie or rom-com genre that we've covered a lot on rewatchables
Yeah.
too. And
Right.
yeah, there's
But
a lot.
so the 90s, at least to you and me, and this is like this is a specific interpretation, but they are dominated by Nora Ephron. Because
Oh my
you've
God,
got
of
When Harry
course.
Met Sally, which kind of ushers in the new rom-com,
Yeah.
the modern era. You've got Sleepless in Seattle. You've got Mail, which is our personal favorite. And I was thinking last night, a lot of similarities with Notting Hill.
Yeah, totally. I just want to say on the Nora Ephron tip,
Yeah.
This Is My Life, also I think a 90s movie with Julie Kavner and Samantha Morton.
Oh, yeah. You keep trying to get
And
me to
Abby
watch that. I still have
Hoffman?
never seen it.
Gabby Hoffman, excuse me. Abby
Okay.
Hoffman is a member of the Weather Underground. Gabby Hoffman, that's also written by Nora Ephron
Mhm.
based on a Meg Woltzer script. Like that's like a
Yes.
a novel. That's like the 90s were Nora Ephron's time.
Yes.
I wish I had been older in the 90s, specifically for that reason.
Well, but we appreciated it
Yes,
now.
of course. Of
So
course.
anyway, Notting Hill is at the end of this decade, and then it kind of feels like a response in a little bit. It is a commentary on movie stars, but it is also a comment on kind of falling in love via the movies.
Sure.
You know, Hugh Grant is watching Julia Roberts in those movies all of the time, and it feels a bit like a response to the Nora Ephron stuff, and also ushers in the more celebrity-centric rom-coms that'll come in the next decade.
Yes.
Like the Kate Hudsons of it all. And the Hugh Grants to an extent, because he's in a lot of romantic comedies after this with like 2 Weeks Notice, which except for the Trump appearance, I think is fantastic.
Great movie.
Although the politics of it are really tough in retrospect. The politics in basically
Many rom-coms.
all of the romantic comedies, except for this one.
And Nora Ephron's. A lot of hers, I think, are also, they stand up to time. But her movies also kind of exist in a vacuum.
Yes.
For another conversation.
That's true. I mean, also the Sleepless in Seattle, they just don't really know each other, but whatever. But
Magic. Doesn't matter.
It's okay. That's true. And we'll talk about that. So our producer, Craig, who watched Notting Hill for the first time last night and loved it. Craig, is
Loved
that?
it.
Yeah, I feel like this is the best review that you've ever given a movie that you watched for the first time for this podcast.
Yeah, it's only been 12 hours since I've seen it, and I love it.
Okay, great. He stayed up last night to finish it. But he did point out that in Notting Hill, they also don't spend a lot of time together,
Yes.
which I suppose is a rom-com trope.
Sure.
Yeah, you gotta have faith.
I think for two people who like a lot of alone time, you and I, it's
That's
like
so true.
it's like a really great depiction of what
Yeah.
a relationship should be.
Yeah.
It's like that's enough time together. Some really important moments, a beautiful park scene, a lovely bath,
Mhm.
and then see you later. See you in a little bit.
I think that's really true. It's also focused on reading much. Yeah,
yes,
it's great.
a very literary.
Yeah.
It's very literary.
But anyway, it's just an interesting moment in romantic comedies, and I think also definitely it was transitional and it influenced a lot to come.
yes, it did.
All right, category number 1, most rewatchable scene. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 8
Oh my god.
nominees, maybe 9. Well,
Oh my god.
I don't know. It's extremely rewatchable.
Let's go through them.
Okay. Also, I should just say Juliet and I picked our answers separately and we have not consulted on them, and we are going to present them to each other and you in real time, and that'll be exciting.
Your list is far longer than mine, so let's just go through your list and I'll tell you when I also have that on mine.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry that I got excited about
No,
doing this
I
movie.
I support it.
Okay.
I'm just also a natural hierarchy maker, so it's like usually easy for me to jettison a lot because I basically rank everything I come into contact with. Like,
Okay, that's
like,
great.
Like
We're
top
learning.
web pages I've looked in a day, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, these are chronological throughout the movie. The first bookstore scene when Julia Roberts is browsing, and there's the interlude with the book down your trousers guy.
Sure.
What does it say?
That's my signature, and above it it says, Dear Rufus, you belong in jail.
Good one. Do you want my phone number?
Tempting, but no.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
just it's fantastic.
Classic.
The way that she signs the book, too,
Yes.
is amazing. She's like, you should be in jail.
Rufus, you belong in jail.
Yeah.
And also like a good encapsulation because it's Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts kind of circling each other. And there's also just 1 to 2 British weirdos being weird and British in real time.
Also establishes her as kind of a bitch, which I love.
Yeah, I want to talk about that
Okay.
later. But okay, we're going to go through the scenes. The movie junket,
The movie junket I love.
Horse and Hound.
Yes,
yeah.
that's
okay.
on my
Sure.
Horse and Hound is the magazine that Hugh Grant says he works for.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
It's really good stuff. Okay. So Honey, the sister's birthday party
Uh-huh.
with a special shout out to the brownie scene.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Competing for the brownie.
Yes.
All right.
But specifically, that's the dinner party scene, right? The birthday?
Yeah. The birthday dinner party.
Sorry,
scene. Yes.
I was making sure it wasn't the one at the end where then the weirdo roommate proposes to her and she doesn't even know.
Oh no, no. They do have a lot of dinner parties in this movie, which I really like.
Which is one of the reasons why, like, when you're 13 or 15, you think it's a great picture of adulthood because that always seemed like a great way to socialize.
I was just kind of like, I should really have more dinner parties watching this last night. It's really aspirational. They make it look so easy.
Totally. I mean, the dinner party scene is really amazing.
Yeah, and even though they do make it look easy, there's the baked-in joke about how his friend Max is a terrible cook, and there's just always something going wrong, which is like real life. It's it's approachable while still being okay. But the brownie scene when they're competing for the brownie and everyone's like, "Here's why I'm a sad sack," and Julia gives her speech. Okay. The next one, so I guess I really like the dinner party montages because the next one was the dinner parties without Julia, where they're trying to find him someone
trying to find
new.
him a girlfriend. Yeah, Emily Mortimer pops up.
And then it ends with, I think this is why I picked it. It ends with that nice scene with his friends at home and they're just talking about their feelings.
It's a really supportive friend group. It's really sweet.
Yeah, that's why I thought that the friends here are really good.
It also contributes to like an overarching theme of the movie, which is Notting Hill is a small village, which I've got some notes on. We'll get to that, but it definitely contributes to it. Where his intro is like, I live in this little part of the city called Notting Hill, and here's my street. Although it's one. I only know the neighborhood of Notting Hill post movie Notting Hill.
Yes.
So to me, I'm just sort of like, this is ridiculous. There's a Soho House there. But
right.
A lot of that is because of the movie.
I also have some notes and I have that for some aging questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So their day together, when she comes back, they're running lines, they eat the ice cream, they talk about the fuzz on Mel Gibson's bottom.
Hey, what do you put on your passport? Profession, Mel Gibson's bottom.
Actually, Mel does his own ass work.
Right.
Why wouldn't he? It's delicious.
What, the ice cream or Mel Gibson's bottom?
Both. Equally.
But you wouldn't necessarily lick both.
Well, this is tart. And fuzz-free.
It's a really nice day. Seems like a great... That's the kind of day, though, that typifies a relationship that won't work out because it's like too much in isolation,
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, oh, you guys are having a great... It is a perfect prelude to then the next day when the paparazzi show up.
Yes. I have some more thoughts about that, but just like it's just a viewing experience.
This is positive only
just
right
like
now.
Watching it. Okay. Obviously the I'm Just a Girl speech.
Yes. As far as the two bookstore speeches go, I prefer the two bookstore scenes. I prefer the first. I love the first one where she's with,
it is
with
great.
Rufus.
And it is like a establishing of tone and carries the whole range, but also that's the most famous scene in the world. So we just have to be responsible. Sometimes it's important to include the obvious things. And then the press conference.
Yes, I love the press
conference.
conference.
Okay, did I forget anything for you?
No. My three were the dinner party scene, the press conference, and the press junket.
Okay.
I guess I like media. I don't know.
I do think that the movie junket is really good.
It's funny. And it moves quickly. And it also shows them in a type of it's a different type of vibe for them than you get in the rest of the movie between Julia and Hugh.
Yes.
Because they have to both be kind of more restrained. And she might be the most likable in that scene, in my opinion.
Yeah, because and you can also see just like she's turning it on, she's turning it off. You get to see the difference between like famous Anna Scott and private Anna Scott, and you kind of understand that character the most in that episode.
Yeah.
And they're both clearly just really enjoying the commentary. And it is also like, that's what those are like. That's really, really accurate.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And Misha Barton pops up.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I knew that
Have
was
to
part
mention her in every podcast I do.
I guess mine is the movie junket, though. I do have a soft spot for the first bookstore scene.
Mine's the first
too.
Bookstore scene.
Yeah.
I think it's also, she's just very, her sort of coarseness in it, and to lack of a better word, I really find appealing in a weird way.
Yeah. Good one-liners, the book with the bit about the kebab.
It's great.
Okay. I can go with that. That seems good.
Great.
That's great. All right. We agreed. Okay, the next category is what's aged the best. Again, extremely long list here. Do you want to start with yours?
Sure.
Okay.
Number one for me is Julia Roberts' style. I think that what she's wearing looks great. And she's wearing those Vans way before they were cool.
Juliet.
I'm sorry.
This is this is a personal intervention. Literally, Julia Roberts wearing fucking teal flip-flops in the final scene when she comes to present a priceless painting and declare her love for someone has haunted me for 20 years. It is unacceptable. If you are going somewhere to make an important speech and make your case to spend the rest of your life with someone, do not wear flip-flops.
I agree with that.
Man, woman, old, young, do not wear flip-flops.
Flip-flops are for the shower and the beach, basically. But people wear Adidas slides like they're like high fashion now.
Okay, that's fine. If you're going to present artwork and beg someone to marry you,
A Chagall, no less. Very
cover
few
your
of
toe,
those.
put on some real ass shoes.
I still think it's aged well. I think people still dress like
Why
that.
is she wearing bad suits from Express so much?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Like all of the time. Like on her day off when she's wearing the beret and a weird suit from Express. And then she changes to some weird like 2-piece Hot Topic number.
a lot of it is bad tailoring, but a lot of those clothes are back.
That doesn't mean that they're good. We're
just
going
saying.
through a fashion crisis right now,
But
both
they've
men's and
aged
women's.
well. They've aged well. They're back in. That's what I'm saying. You don't like them, but they wouldn't look that out of place.
I do not think that they've aged well. I think that they're horrific. I have two things I'm on what's aged the worst, and Julia Roberts' wardrobes is one of them. The flip-flops is a thing that I have to keep myself from tweeting about once every 2 weeks when I
my
watch
God.
this movie because I'm so angry. It's an abomination.
Agree to disagree.
Okay.
I think it's aged well.
Well, this
Particularly,
category is going horribly. but
particularly the Vans.
okay, whatever. Like wearing Vans is just...
Everyone here is wearing Vans now.
We have a special 1999 category, and that's what that's for. Okay?
Fair enough.
All right, keep going with your list.
London. London looks wonderful and
Yeah.
also quite similar. And also like a great picture of a booming city that has like many different
Yeah.
neighborhoods.
I have Notting Hill as a neighborhood, which
Yeah.
echoes your point of like I learned about Notting Hill from this neighborhood.
Do you have
'Cause
a photo of yourself in front of the blue door?
I don't.
I do.
That's
It's
nice.
not even that long ago. It's from what year are we in? It's from 2017.
Is it still there?
Yes, it is.
Is it the same one? Because we'll
Yes.
get to half-ass trivia, but apparently it moves and now it lives like in Surrey or something. It's not Surrey. I'll look up
Oh,
where it is.
because they didn't film it they didn't
Yeah,
film
yeah,
most
yeah.
of the movie in London.
Okay.
But yeah, it's still the building's still there.
All right. Well, that's great. I have not been there. I still do think kind of it was clearly like Richard Curtis, who wrote the movie, lived there as
Yes.
he was writing, and it's like based on his life and based on all of his friends. So it was clearly like a cool place that I was not quite old enough to know about at the time,
Sure.
and has then since been Sohoified and is kind of
Yeah, there's like they got the
quite
Portobello.
literally,
Yeah, the Portobello Road market and everything. But it's
Yeah.
like lovely neighborhood. There's
Yeah.
the Electric House, Soho House is there. So
There you go.
there you go. Another one, Hugh Grant's gentle hipster. I just feel like that type of character. I think that Hugh Grant's one of the first ones to sort of
Mhm.
like bookish, and then emotionally unavailable to the host of women who are just pass through the movie very
Yes.
quickly. I just feel like that's an archetype that has really proliferated since.
Yeah, I do feel like there is a Hugh Grant archetype now that is really introduced in Four Weddings and established in this movie. And it's like, oh, he has a Hugh Grant-ish charm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it starts here.
Yeah. And it
I don't
lives
know if
on.
It starts here, but it's memorialized
Yes,
here.
absolutely.
Okay.
And then lastly, the commentary on celebrity culture.
Yeah, that's a number one for mine.
Yeah. I mean, it is really insightful and prescient. Like, even though the kind of the structure of celebrity culture, or not the structure, excuse me, but like the sort of the media that comes out of celebrity culture has changed. Like, it's online now and it's the Daily Mail. It's a little bit different.
Mhm.
This is like kind of like all of the principles still apply. And Hugh Grant says he took this role because he wanted the Mail on Sunday and the Daily Mail to stop printing
Yeah.
incorrect stories about him.
Yes.
So I guess that much has not changed.
Yeah, there's that scene when she's having a total temper tantrum and she's like, you don't get this. Like, this photo will be filed every time I do anything,
Yeah.
they will bring it back up, which is like prescient because
Yes.
I mean, that was certainly true at the time, and now it's like worse with the internet now.
Worse than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was on the top of mind. I think also a corollary to that is like Julia Roberts' decision to do this movie
Yes.
has aged tremendously well, because in that Vanity Fair story that ran at the time, I think it says that she was kind of like, why would I do this at first?
Yes, she didn't like the script that much.
Right. And there are parts of it even that she doesn't really agree with, like the Gilda speech. But it really cemented her comeback and kind of gives her the credit of being thoughtful about celebrity and her place in it, and kind of gives her some ownership back over her own narrative I don't even know if that's intentional or if she feels that way, but to us watching, I think it's very smart.
Where would you go now for that kind of profile? I don't know if it's Vanity Fair anymore.
I don't think it's a profile. Because if you're Julia Roberts level famous, you don't want to surrender that level of control of someone else to interpret for you. So you're probably doing a podcast interview.
I was going to say Mark Maron, maybe.
Maybe
Bill Simmons podcast.
Yeah, there you go. Or if there were, I don't know what the female version is, but something like that.
Well, I think, Amanda, there isn't a female version.
Yeah, that's true. And also notably, this piece is written by a man, and I don't think that's an accident on Julia Roberts' case.
And also, well, listen, we can double back on this in half-assed research, but a lot of the people that they also like threw at her to be opposite her, Hugh Grant, were like much older, and she called Richard Curtis out on that. Yeah. Or I guess for the Alec Baldwin role, not for Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
And also she kept kind of like adding money to how much the character of Anna Scott makes. Like, there's a lot of sort of latent sexism that she called out like in the making of this movie.
Yeah.
So
agree. All right, I have a few other things that have aged best.
Please.
Okay. I think the script is really great. There aren't just like the references are not out of date, even if they are like, even if no one has a travel bookshop anymore.
I have a theory about that. There's not a lot of like technology or sort of like intervention of outside forces or whatever. It is very much like a series of vignettes and then a series of montages.
Yes.
And as a result, there's not a lot of like kind of like small moments that stick out where there's like a random cell phone or like a Kindle or whatever.
Right.
So like without like technology, it's like harder to date the movie.
That's true. And it's also more interested in like the small universe of Notting Hill and the people within it. It's character driven.
Yes.
Even beyond the Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts characters. And that's easier to keep going. Couple more things. The nudity clause explanation.
Yeah.
Just generally useful piece of information that I have thought about a lot as I go about my daily movie watching and celebrity watching life.
Really good.
That's all.
Yeah.
I mean, I just still useful.
Helpful.
I'm sure they've updated it somewhat in the age of the internet, but just to have a general sense of the legal language around this stuff.
Yeah, it's true. I can't think of another movie that like lays it out like that.
Yeah. And then the final speech.
Yeah, I mean.
Which is just, we'll talk more about it, but which has a life of its own outside of this movie. Okay.
Great stuff.
What's aged the worst? I had two, and one of them was the freaking wardrobe. So I have, I've made my case on that.
How do you feel about her hair in this movie?
I feel fine about it. It's not worst case.
It's interesting because I feel like it's one of her first movies where she has like no body in her hair, and like that's so not the image of Pretty Woman Julia Roberts or Mystic Pizza or Steel Magnolias or Runaway Bride.
Right.
It's like a totally different look. I like it, but it's just a very different look for her.
I think it's believable off duty as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not always perfect and sometimes looks a little flat or fried and you also see her in various wigs throughout the movie portions of the movie. So you can just kind of see like the chameleon aspects.
It is a good portrayal of being an actress on her level, an A-lister. I think Travel Bookstore has just aged horribly. Yeah. Just the concept of it. I mean, a bookstore is alive and well, but a travel bookstore specifically is problematic because there's so much like online travel guides, Yelp, Airbnb,
I mean,
TripAdvisor.
like travel books in the same way.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Those are out. It's just, there's no way to defend it.
Okay.
What store do you think you would have now if this was made in 2019?
Is it still a bookstore, do you think?
I feel like maybe he has a bar, a pub.
Oh, interesting.
Although that would be a little bit hard because then he'd also be like in the hospitality line, like his friend.
Yeah, I was also going to say just like lifestyle wise, he needs a job that allows like
coffee
for
shop?
a tremendous amount of free time and running. Yeah, probably a coffee shop or like not the LA version would be a cactus store, but like what is like a plant store or something, you know? Yeah.
Sure. That's funny.
A glasses store?
I recently went to Saturday in New York City in Soho.
And with the coffee shop in there.
Yeah. I feel like maybe he could have that kind of like clothing store or like some store meets coffee shop, whatever. He would have a hybrid.
Right. But it would have to be like the thing about it being a bookstore is that he is bookish. And I
Yes.
don't know, like, we don't have the bookish is
no.
still bookish
You know what
in
it would be?
2019. Oh, no.
A comic book store.
No, that's what I was about to say. I was actually going to say that we do not have a 2019 equivalent to British bookish because it's not comic book store. That brings different associations and different cultures to bear.
I mean, 1999 British bookish is just perfect.
I
There's
would
no,
agree. Okay.
no improving upon the form.
Okay. I would agree. I have one more. What's age
Let's
is the
hear
worst?
it.
Do you have any? Alec Baldwin being in this movie?
Oh, and uncredited, in fact.
In some ways, it makes a lot of sense.
He's totally an asshole boyfriend.
I was thinking about putting it in what's aged the best and the worst
Yeah.
because like this has come to bear for sure. But it's like, it's like I didn't want to see Alec Baldwin in A Star Is Born, and I like don't really need to see Alec Baldwin in this movie. I don't need it.
I was like, is he in A Star Is Born?
Yeah, he hosts at SNL
Oh, right.
and introduces her.
I forgot about
and
that.
it's just like 2 seconds, and you're just like, why is Alec Baldwin here? And I kind of like he works in this movie because you are bringing associations that are real, and I guess in 1999 you were as well. But I think you're bringing different associations now than you were 20 years ago.
I think it's funny that he's like the slick American. That's like,
Yeah.
Because now I think he'd be more like the ugly American.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good point. If that's
Right.
changed.
Like the concept of the Baldwin brothers has
Yeah.
not really aged well.
Especially since the most famous Baldwin now is probably Haley. Unfortunately.
Yes. No, that's true. That's true.
Unfortunate truth.
All right. The 1999 award, this is our special
A few
category.
contenders.
So one of mine, I'll just get out of the way, was Travel Bookstore.
Yeah.
I just think that
Yeah.
that is not something that would exist anymore.
The
and
Lonely
feels-
Planet heyday.
Yeah, there we go. All right.
What were the name of the Harvard? Let's go. The Harvard had like their own travel.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Travel guideline,
Yeah.
which is so obnoxious.
Wait, the other one I have is Julia Roberts' suits. So I'm just really mad.
I was gonna say the jacket she wears to the dinner scene is really bad and very 1999 to me.
They all are. She's just wearing bad clothes from Express.
I like it.
Why wasn't the wardrobe budget higher on this movie?
That's a good question. Maybe they thought she was a bad dresser or like
I mean, actresses often are. This is kind of pre-stylist,
Mm-hmm.
so in a way that makes sense. But also, fam, no.
I'm gonna say the When You Say Nothing at All song that is on the soundtrack and plays when they're in the garden scene. That I just feel like to me that's like super 1999.
That is very 1999.
And then there was like several covers of that song that you might know. The one that was in Notting Hill is by what's his name? Ronan Keating. And then there's the Alison Krauss version.
Yes, that one.
Then there's another one by a guy. Like there's just a lot of versions of that song, and I think it
Mhm.
all started because of Notting Hill.
Definitely did. That's why I know all the words and was
Yeah.
belting them at the top of my lungs in my house last night.
Yeah, and then there's just a lot of versions of it. And
Yeah.
like at the time, I thought it was like a really sweet song, and now I think it's really bad.
Anything else in most 1999?
Just the concept of Reese Ifans, I just feel like as an actor, he's super 99 to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just played the same role over and over and over again after this.
That seems right. Yeah.
Yeah. What
Okay.
else do you have?
That was it.
Oh.
I'm just like, I'm so really mad about Julia Roberts' wardrobe. I'll never get over this. The freaking flip-flops.
The flip flops are really bad. You're right.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Maybe
as
she was getting a pedicure.
Okay. Casting what ifs.
Very few.
Yeah. So basically, they were not going to make this movie without Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant.
Yeah, which is kind of cool.
I think the Julia Roberts of it all makes a tremendous amount of sense just because she was the biggest movie star at this point and her life had been complicated by the
Yes.
tabloids at great length. So if you want the meta commentary, there's really only Julia Roberts.
Yes, it seems like. And then for the Friends,
Mm-hmm.
there aren't even that many rumors out there, partially because none of these people were that famous at the time.
Yeah,
Like Hugh Bonneville now is famous because he was Lord Grantham. But,
very true.
you know, at the time in the US, these people were not famous.
Yeah. The Hugh Grant, you could see where maybe they would try someone else, but at the same time, Richard Curtis says, and I agree with this, that like Hugh Grant is the best Richard Curtis performer.
Totally.
And he really does make the rhythms of this whole movie work. So in the same sense that you need Julia Roberts for the meta part, you need Hugh Grant to kind of interpret the script and bring all the charm to life. And then you got to cast the friends to match with Hugh Grant. So
Right.
it kind of goes from there.
It all revolves around him.
Yeah.
Do you think there will be a Hugh Grant cameo in Yesterday, the movie coming out from Richard Curtis, directed by Danny Boyle, about if the Beatles didn't exist?
I don't think so for two reasons. Number one, I think they have to spend all of their cameo money
On
and
Ed Sheeran?
energy. No, Juliet, on the freaking Beatles.
Oh, right.
On the people who are literally inspiring the classic Juliet.
I feel like he's probably really expensive too.
I'm sure he is, but I think it's probably in Ed Sheeran's interest and to appear in this
Totally.
movie. Also, if he's appearing in Bridget
Thrones?
Jones, well, also remember he was in the
Bridget
third
Jones
Bridget
in the
Jones.
beginning. Maybe he just likes a cameo.
I think that's true. But anyway, maybe they had to spend a little time on
It
Ed
didn't
Sheeran.
even occur to me the Beatles would be in this movie.
Okay, well, there are two of them still alive, and I think
know.
for rights reasons and credibility, you probably want to have them show up at some point.
Fair enough.
So I don't think Hugh Grant has talked a lot about how the great joke in all of these movies is that everyone thinks he's like his characters, and Richard
Right.
Curtis cast him because he's nothing like them, and
Yes.
he's like not a bumbling guy who
Not at
can't
all.
get a woman, which like we know Hugh. But
On that note,
yeah,
of course, he was with Elizabeth Hurley for 15 years.
Mhm.
2 years after they broke up, she had a child,
Mhm.
and he is that child's godfather.
Mhm.
I think that's beautiful. They're still friends.
yeah, I think that's great.
It's lovely.
Right.
Unexpected. But also, I mean, yeah, if you read anything about his personal life, you know he is not like the Will Thackers out there.
Right. And he just doesn't, he seems like he has a real sense of humor.
Yeah.
Again, I just really recommend him as a Twitter follow.
And a huge sense of self.
Yeah, but I don't think
In a
that
bad
it's
way.
like a jokey, I'd love to like be in Yesterday playing myself
Right.
type of way.
That's true.
Okay.
All right, next. Moving on.
Dion Waiters Ward,
Dion Waiters
which
Award.
is for making the most with the least.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going with Emma Chambers, his sister.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay.
That could be a forgettable role, but she's like quirky and weird, and I think she's good.
She is. I've got a couple.
Okay.
Martin, James Dreyfus.
Yes, very good.
Who's the assistant in the bookstore. And the bit with when he comes in the end and it's just like, I really loved Ghost.
Yes, and she was like, that wasn't me.
I've always wondered what Patrick Swayze is like in real life.
I can't say that I know Patrick all that well.
What, he wasn't that friendly during filming?
Well, I'm sure he was friendly to Demi Moore, who acted with him in Ghost.
Oh, right. Sorry. Right. Always been a bit of an ass.
That's a really good
And
scene.
also, speaking of the
Great
Beatles,
writing.
the whole thing when he's like, I saw Ringo Starr once, but it was from a long way away and it probably wasn't him. And like, not a classic anecdote, it's
Yeah.
pretty good. So he's good. I think that the married couple, Max and Bella, who are played by Tim McInerney and Gina McKee, they're very good. They instantly have a believable relationship. It's like not the typical best friend in a rom-com thing where they're just kind of being over the top and are there
Yeah.
to serve the interest. They kind of have their own story and
yeah, they're very sweet.
and you believe in their relationship with William very easily. I
Yeah.
think they're good.
Man, was I excited to see her in Bodyguard. Like,
Yes,
just so excited.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Reese Ifans is
Yeah. He does a lot.
the scuba bit is pretty funny.
It's really funny. Also, when he's wearing the goggles at the movie theater
Mhm.
when they go to see her movies,
Yeah.
that's really funny too.
Sets it up well.
yeah. He's really, I mean, he's very charming and also like super memorable.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're
I like
staying
him.
with Honey?
I'm staying with Honey.
I'm gonna go with Martin.
okay.
I just laugh
he
every
is
single
really good.
time.
He-
It's really funny.
He adds a beat to those scenes
And
that is
he-
very much needed.
and he brings the bookstore stuff to life.
yeah. He's
Okay.
also like the comedic relief in those moments.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Okay.
Fast internet
Do you want
research?
to you wanted to add a special best cameo?
Oh, yeah.
Which I kind of feel is sort of like the Dion Waiters Award. So
Sure.
let's do it there. You had your nominees. Would you like to present them?
Sure. Emily Mortimer
Yes.
as a date. That doesn't work out,
Yeah.
but she's very nice.
yeah.
Alec Baldwin is the American boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Misha Barton is a co-star in the space movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are my three.
Yeah. There are three extremely recognizable people
Yeah.
who maybe weren't. Misha and Emily Mortimer, it's pretty early in their careers.
Super early.
Yeah.
Misha Barton is literally 12.
Who is your winner? Or do you want me to pick?
Well,
I mean, I know your winner is Misha Barton.
no, it's kind of Alec Baldwin. I think in that one scene, he really makes a big impact. He's such a dick when he's ordering from him.
Yeah.
He's such an asshole.
And the part about the big fat girlfriend and don't order too much.
Yeah.
It's very gross.
Yeah, I'm going with Alec Baldwin.
I was going to go with Emily Mortimer just because I would like to. I have a lot of nitpicks, even though I love this movie, so I'll just get this one out of the way now. Why doesn't Hugh Grant's character go on a date with Emily Mortimer?
I don't know. Just give it one shot.
They basically do. And he's like, she's perfect. She seems really charming.
I know, just date your way out
It's
of it, man.
implausible. He should go out on a date with her.
It totally doesn't make sense.
Yeah, okay.
She is wonderful.
So as a result, she's my best cameo.
okay.
Okay. Half-assed internet research.
Yes.
There's a lot of
There's
this.
There's a lot.
Do you want to, should we just go back and forth sharing our interesting
Sure.
notes? Or I can just read them to you. Okay. Here's one. As you kind of alluded to this, but there is a scene when Hugh Bonneville meets Julia Roberts at the birthday party.
Mhm.
And he like doesn't know who she is, and he's talking about how he's a stockbroker, and he's asking how much she makes as an actor. So the script says 10 million, and then in future takes she changed it to 12 million. In the third take, she said 15 million. Hugh Bonneville later asked Roberts why she kept changing the figure. She replied, "I'm kind of tired of lowballing." That's pretty good.
It's really
I have
good.
no idea whether it's true, but I believe it of Julia Roberts, and it makes me laugh.
All the stories from the set of this movie sound like she was like taking the reins. And
Yes.
She's like, it's my time. And that encapsulates it really well.
Yeah. In the Vanity Fair piece, they talked about how just nervous everyone was about Julia at all times, which I can't. They allude to all of the reports from like the early to mid 90s when she was like, quote, difficult on set. And she talks about it and addresses it and says like she doesn't really think it's fair. And then they spent a lot of time talking about how everyone was nervous. And in the Vanity Fair piece, they see it as like, she's such a big deal and she's so intimidating. It's Julia. And I couldn't tell how much of that was that they were nervous because she's intimidating and how much they were nervous because she is abrupt.
Yeah. One of the also in the Vanity Fair article is just a font of information.
Yeah.
It also says that Hugh Grant was nervous around her, so his voice would rise an octave, which I don't believe, but okay, fine. It's a Vanity Fair, so it might be true.
Yeah. 15 million is also allegedly what she was paid for Notting Hill. So
That's a lot for 1999.
it is.
That would be a lot in any year, but particularly that
I
one.
think it would be like a lot now.
Like 25 now?
Well, I don't know. Is
Points on the back
like
end?
I think it's points on the back end. I don't know if movie stars are getting 25 million to make romantic comedies anymore.
No, they're definitely not. That's the thing about this movie is it also would obviously never be made now.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, maybe it would, but it wouldn't be put in studios.
It'd be on Netflix.
Yeah, exactly.
I,
Okay,
I would love a Richard Curtis streaming economy. That'd be great.
let's do it. I agree with you.
That would be fantastic.
Okay, here's some more trivia. The house with the blue door where William lives is real, as Juliet said. It once belonged to Notting Hill screenwriter Richard Curtis. Okay, but here's the follow-up. This is what I was talking about. The house with the blue door used in the movie was sold the year following the release of the movie. The original blue door was removed and auctioned. The replacement door was painted black so that no one would recognize it. Soon, however, someone later spray painted on the wall next to the door, "This is the Hollywood door."
Oh, wow.
So I think that that's what happened.
So
It's
that's
been on
the-
a journey.
That's the picture that I have.
Okay.
I'll show it to you
Well,
after this podcast.
Yeah, but you're there. Can we share
Yeah.
it with people
Sure.
on the internet? But you're there. And I
Yeah.
think that counts.
Had a great time.
Okay. And apparently the original blue door is now on a property in Hope Cove, Devon,
Oh, lovely.
with a view of the ocean, I hope.
Oh,
it
that's
deserves
beautiful.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
How nice.
All right, here's another one. The final cut was 3.5 hours long,
That's
90
absurd.
minutes edited. I don't believe this.
Me neither.
What is 3.5 hours?
What could they have done? Maybe they spent more time together, or maybe I don't know. Because I don't feel like much is missing from this movie. Like, there's not a lot where I'm like, God, we really need more of this.
I agree.
It's a great length.
So I would love to see 3.5, like release the 90 minutes.
Release the tapes.
How much would you pay for it?
A lot.
I
Like,
would too.
like $60 maybe.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was going to say 20. Like, I would pay the price of owning a movie digitally to just own the extras of this.
I would pay a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm curious.
All
Give
right.
me more. Yes.
According to Richard Curtis, Anna Scott was a hybrid of Grace Kelly and Audrey Hepburn,
Interesting. Okay.
which maybe explains the one thing I find interesting about the Julia Roberts performance is she really is cut off and removed and like distant and is not at all personable in a way that we
Yeah, at
don't
all.
associate with Julia Roberts. And obviously that's trying to connect, create the idea of you're a celebrity and you have to deal with people all of the time and you just want privacy and you're kind of above earthly human pursuits. But there are aspects of Audrey Hepburn and Grace Kelly and those sort of more distant Hollywood stars in it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It is a really different portrayal of like a famous woman. Like she's also like she's vulnerable when she's put in a vulnerable position, but she's not like needy or clingy or whatever. She very much has the power in their relationship, and I think that's like kind of uncommon, and particularly in rom-coms.
Definitely in rom-coms. This is one of the only I think Hugh Grant is the protagonist of this movie.
Oh, definitely.
And you don't get that many romantic comedies where the guy is the protagonist.
Right.
Solely. Sometimes you get like a even duo. That's the Nora Ephron movies. And a lot of times you get it being focused on a woman who works in publishing and, you know,
And
has
is a
to learn
mess.
to love
Yeah.
herself, right? But you don't get that many. And they really are just kind of the Hugh Grant movies.
I know. I can't think of another one off the top of my head.
4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But you hate it. So it's
I don't
fine.
hate it. I just
I'm
don't have the same emotional connection to it.
And thank you for indulging all of my grievances in this one. All right. Anything else? We mentioned the thing where Hugh Grant's voice goes up when he's really nervous.
So bizarre.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk about the person who wrote the Istanbul book.
Oh, sure.
He teaches in Istanbul and is the author of 9 books in the city in real
Wow.
life. So he has actually been to Turkey,
Oh, my goodness.
as they say in the movie.
Great.
Okay. That's great stuff. All right. Apex Mountain.
Hugh Grant. I'm going for it. This is his Apex Mountain. He's so good in this movie. This is how I want to remember him. It doesn't get better. This is his Apex.
I think that's totally true.
Yes. Thank you.
Because it makes a lot of money. It sets up the rest of his early 2000s, which is when he cements himself as a rom-com star, but none of them are as good as this one.
Yeah.
He looks quite handsome. He's gotten past the scandal of his life, part 1.
God, what a 3-year stretch he had, or 4 years. So he's in Notting Hill in 99. Then he is in Small Time Crooks in 2000. Bridget Jones's Diary 2001. About a Boy 2002, which I've seen more than Notting Hill. 2 Weeks Notice in 2002 as well.
Hold on. How have you seen About a Boy
I've
more
seen
than
it
Notting Hill?
I love it. Absolutely love it.
I don't dislike it. I enjoy it. Still, how have you seen About a Boy more times than
It's
Notting
been in
Hill?
my insomnia rotation for longer.
Okay. But isn't that like kind of depressing when you
I
can't
don't-
sleep?
I love it. I just think it's such a sweet movie. The only problem with it is when Nicholas Holt's character is just ringing the doorbell and he won't stop for a long time. It's really loud in the middle of the night. That's the only problem with
Okay.
it.
I guess you do like romantic comedies that involve music.
Yeah, I just think it's like really sweet, and I love Rachel Weisz. Like, I don't know, I love that movie.
I do love Rachel Weisz.
It's so good. And then, I mean, I love 2 Weeks Notice too. So for 3 years, after beginning with Notting Hill, he just like, and then Love Actually's in 2003.
Yeah.
What a great time for him.
Yes.
Amazing.
Okay. I agree with you. Apex Mountain for Hugh Grant, yes. Julia Roberts,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think that she is better in My Best Friend's Wedding, though I prefer this movie.
I would agree with that. And I think My Best Friend's Wedding sets up everything
Yeah.
that happens next. And is also kind of like she did it. She made it back. She beat, the Hollywood system
Yeah.
and all of the angry people. I agree with you. Okay. Richard Curtis.
I think this is an Apex.
You do? So after this, he makes Bridget Jones's Diary,
Right.
which is extremely important to me. One of the
It's
top
tough.
5 most important films.
It's tough. I mean, it's a great movie.
And I think uses like Hugh Grant in a great way. You get Colin Firth, you get Renee. And then, he makes Love Actually, which I think, and also directs Love Actually. And it's not my favorite of his films, but is probably the most
successful. Yeah. I'm not in the Love Actually hive, but it's a good movie. I just think it's really overrated. And I think that's because men like it and they've co-opted the narrative.
Men like Love Actually.
Yes.
Okay. I believe you. I think men like a lot of these movies.
I think they particularly like Love Actually. I don't
Okay.
know why, but they just do.
I guess
think it's
because
fine.
it features a lot of men in positions of power taking advantage of the women who
Probably.
work for them.
Probably. And also, like, it just doesn't have the emotional depth of a lot of these other movies. It's very sweet, but in some ways it's unearned, in my opinion.
Yeah, but it also does introduce it doesn't
The
introduce,
ensemble.
but like it makes the ensemble thing
Yeah.
a
Which,
major thing.
Again, I'm not that into, except for he's not that into, which I love.
It made a lot of money and I think cements his career. So I would agree, even though it's not my personal apex, that Love Actually is probably Richard Curtis's.
What a great career he's had as a writer.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Yesterday.
Me too. I can't wait.
Is there anyone else here that you want to do from an Apex Mountain perspective?
I mean, it's probably Reese Ifans
Yes,
too, but he's
that's
not,
definitely true.
He's not,
That's why I'm
big, he's
setting you
not
up.
big enough to qualify.
Okay. All right. Then that's a natural transition into the Joey Pants Award, which is the one for that guy.
Right. I mean, also Reese Ifans.
I mean, I was like, to me, this has to be Reese Ifans.
we could rename it to the Reese Ifans Award.
Yeah, that's very true. I think really you could kind of do Hugh Bonneville, but then he became Earl of
he's
Grantham.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is true that everyone else, all of the friends in this movie have become like the Notting Hill friend to me and everything else that they do.
Yeah, particularly Gina McKee. When I saw her in Bodyguard, I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, that's
Yeah.
Will's friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The next Saul Rubinek Award for overacting.
I don't know. Is there an obvious choice here? Maybe Alec Baldwin? I don't know.
I was honestly like, Honey skirts the line. Sometimes it's a bit much, but she's also supposed to be that way. So
Yeah.
it's not really overacting. It's like overwriting.
Yeah.
You are the most beautiful woman in the world. And more importantly, I genuinely believe, and I've believed for some time now, that we could be best friends. So what do you think?
Lucky me.
I don't really understand how they are siblings.
I know. They spend no time together. Aren't similar in any way. They don't look alike.
Right.
That's true.
When
but
his mom's calling in the climactic scene,
I know.
it's just like, Honey could handle this also. Why are you responsible for the foot? Although he is the responsible sibling, so
Yeah.
I get it. But I'm just like, this is important. That's really the only one. This is a pretty understated movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The only scene where that's not true is when she's filming and it's
The Henry James?
the Henry James movie, and she's like talking about how he's no one, and she's kind of like overplaying it. But I think that's
Right.
intentional.
I mean, as we were talking about this, I was like, the only real dramatic scene is her just having a total temper tantrum.
yeah,
But she's good at that. It's all like frighteningly realistic, to be quite
sure.
honest.
When the paparazzi photos
Yeah.
happen. Yeah.
Okay. Picking nits. I love this movie more than life itself, and I still have some.
Oh, there's plenty.
Okay. Here's my number one. We can go back and forth.
Okay.
Hotel security throughout London.
Yes, very
What's
poor.
going on? Okay.
Very, very poor. Particularly getting up to the junket, I think. I know.
Yeah.
And then also being able to call her and
The
just
names,
connect to her room.
right? So, like, this was a thing, especially in the '90s, when people like still called hotels. Which
Yeah.
is, I mean, that's a '90s thing actually. That
Totally.
we should have. That's most '99 is like calling the front desk of a hotel. But I think celebrities would use fake names.
Yes.
But number one, that he's just able to just keep guessing Disney characters,
Yeah, they
and
don't
they're
hang
like,
up on
sure,
him.
right? And then he can go through. He gives private information about where the press conference is. I guess it's not private; it's a public event,
Yeah.
but still. And then also the next one, he just basically sails through to the press conference. They do have to do a thing about a Blockbuster card that's pretty funny, but it seems far more permeable than it should.
I totally agree with you.
Okay.
Some more at the end at the press conference.
Mhm.
How do they know to call on him at all? There's so many people in there. He's all the way in the back.
I do think it helps that he's wearing a pink shirt. It's like I like the pink shirt on him. I think
Okay.
Hugh Grant's like very classic Oxford button-down wardrobe throughout this movie is a nice choice character-wise. But then he at the end is like the only one wearing pink, and he says the guy in the pink shirt. It's a good strategy.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
Okay. William Thacker's finances.
Yes.
Let's talk about it.
And also his divorce.
Yeah, that's a separate one. It's like, why are multiple women dumping Hugh Grant?
yeah. Why is this guy divorced at all? He was cheated on, in fact.
Right. For someone who looks like Harrison Ford, which I get, it is a different vibe, and some women are going to go for that. But he is divorced, and his friend dumps him
Yes.
for Max.
yes.
Bella dumps him for Max, which I just like, this is hard for me to believe.
I agree with you.
They do their best to establish him.
Maybe he's boring, too nervous, too
Maybe
tentative.
he's distant. Maybe he's not super emotionally available.
Sure. Protecting himself all the time.
Right. I mean, it's like
Won't
he
go
won't
after the
Yeah,
girl.
he won't go on a date with Emily Mortimer. He's just sitting there kind of like judging everyone and fumbling. So possibly it's hard to invest long term, but this strains belief for me personally.
I agree with you.
Okay, but I want to talk about his finances.
Okay.
So he's divorced, but he still has a house in Notting Hill, like a full-ass townhouse.
But he's had to take on a lodger for the money or for the company.
I think probably for the money.
Yeah.
But still, think about how much that's worth in a historic part of London.
A lot.
Plus, he runs a travel bookstore.
Well, at the time, perhaps it was lucrative.
No, they talk about how it loses 300 pounds after a major sales push in the
Family
movie.
money?
The evidence is there.
There's no way to explain it. It's an unanswerable question. How does
Okay.
he have money?
Okay. I think he doesn't. It is answerable, and it's just incorrect.
Well, what about the friend whose restaurant goes out of business? What's he doing for money?
Well, he quit his job, and it's all the money that he ever earned. They all also, the Hugh Bonneville, the stockbroker, gets fired.
Right. Everyone's a little down on their luck.
Yeah. I mean, my next thing was just like the real estate questions in general,
Their
because
homes
everyone
are
has
so nice.
lovely houses. And, this is a trope, but they were living in London, which is
I know.
extremely
One of the
expensive.
most, especially then, one of the most expensive places to live.
Right. And no one is like deeply employed
No.
that I can tell.
No one.
Okay. Why are multiple women dumping Hugh Grant? We talked about that. One more, answering the front door in your underwear.
Yeah. Just don't do that.
Especially Hugh Grant's character is not going to do that. In the middle of the day in like boxer briefs.
Yeah.
That's just not how it's been established. He has a sport coat that goes with him everywhere he goes.
Everywhere he goes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Also for her, she didn't need to contact anyone at any point in the times that she was with him. She's just like off the grid.
Well, until it goes wrong and
Right.
she immediately calls her publicist. Who,
Right.
by the way, this one publicist stays employed through a lot of screw-ups.
I know. How does she still have a job?
That's kind of when she's at the Henry James set, I'm like, you're still here? This is really happening? But yeah, she does call him and she was like, my plan was not a brilliant plan. So it's like she had almost told her, like, I will be off the grid.
Yeah.
Don't contact me.
Okay.
This does lead to one of my unanswerable questions, though,
Let's hear it.
which is just, does Anna Scott have any family or friends?
No, it seems not.
Because they show the wedding and there's
I
like
know,
not
no
a
one's
single
there.
person. She's not contacting anybody, which I thought a lot about that People magazine article that we talked about on the My Best Friend's Wedding podcast,
Yes.
which was the wedding that she called off to Kiefer Sutherland was going to be held on a studio lot.
Right.
And like her agent was going to be her bridesmaid.
She, Julia Roberts, did not have a lot of friends.
Yeah. Do you have any other unanswerable questions
I
while we're
don't.
doing it?
I
Okay.
don't. I don't know, like, the universe is so contained. It's sort of like, if you extrapolate, sure, there's like a lot of things to ask. But I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I have one more thing
Yeah?
that's under, it's like picking nits / unanswerable questions. And I just want to reiterate before I talk about this, I really love this movie and I think it's a success. And I find it very emotional. And I want to have a dialogue.
Okay.
Do Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant have any chemistry?
That's a great question.
Because I was thinking when I watched it and I was like, oh, it's the sex scene. I can go to the bathroom right now, which is like, a little bit that in a rom-com, this sex scene often doesn't happen, actually.
I think he's really, in my opinion, only had chemistry with Sandra Bullock in his movies.
I think that's true.
They have a good friend vibe. Like when they're running lines together and like hanging out, like it seems like a fun day. But sexual chemistry, no.
I agree that there's not a lot of sexual chemistry.
But they
and
seem
I
like they
think
could be good friends.
there's real affection in the morning after. They're
Yeah.
very comfortable,
Yeah.
but it's not,
Not sexy.
yeah, that part is like slightly weird.
My bar's been lowered so far close to the ground by Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen, who literally have negative sexual chemistry. I'm like, yeah, they're fine. Because everything's better than that.
Yeah, and I think also it doesn't totally matter in the context of this movie because it is about kind of like hero worship and
Yeah.
falling in love with someone from afar and celebrity and movie and kind of
Yeah,
things
and also
that
like
aren't
the
like
fits and starts of a relationship.
yeah, and aren't really about like the intimacy which is established after the fact. So they
Right.
are almost in parallel tracks for a lot of the movie, and it's not about sexual chemistry. It's about all the other aspects.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. That's
I think
okay.
that's a valid question. But like that's kind of true in a lot of rom-coms, I find.
As I was thinking about it, I was like, who has great sexual chemistry in
And
the
A lot of
In
rom-coms don't have
rom-coms.
sex in them too,
Mhm.
which sort of like skirts the issue.
right. But there is like, aside from just throwdown sexual chemistry, there just like is a buzz that
Yeah.
two people have, and you think that it's going to go well. And like Nora Ephron movies are basically asexual, but Tom Hanks and Meg
Totally.
Ryan have chemistry.
Agreed.
And Julia Roberts and Richard Gere like definitely have sexual chemistry. It's kind of the main thing for a while.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's just interesting. I don't really think it matters in the context of this movie.
I don't find him particularly sexual in general. That's part of it for me.
He's definitely not playing that in this movie. Like I said, he's wearing like Oxfords and sport coats,
Yeah.
and is just kind of like I have a
Great
bookstore.
and great glasses.
Yeah, that's true. And scuba goggles when he doesn't have the glasses. Okay, I feel like we acknowledged the question,
Yeah.
but in a respectful way.
Absolutely.
Okay,
We still
thanks for-
support this movie.
Thanks for going through that with me.
Of course.
All right, best quote.
Okay.
So I wrote down some other quotes and then I deleted them because I was like, this is useless. And then
Can we just play the clip?
I live in Notting Hill. You live in Beverly Hills. Everyone in the world knows who you are. My mother has trouble remembering my name.
Fine. Fine. Good decision. Good decision. The fame thing isn't really real, you know. And don't forget, I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her.
I mean, it's the defining rom-com speech in my mind.
it really is.
The only thing close to it, in my opinion, is Billy Crystal at the end of When Harry Met Sally, when he's like, when you want to spend the rest of your life with someone, you want to start as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing else that even comes close.
Well, for me, the other one is also written by Richard Curtis, which is in Bridget Jones' Diary, which is I Like You Just the Way You Are,
Yeah.
which was literally a reading at my wedding. So because I just really like it and I didn't want any other
it is
sappy
really
shit.
good.
But yeah, it's funny. I was reading the Janet Maslin review in the New York Times in 1999 for this movie, and she likes parts of it and then talks about the like treacly speech that Julia Roberts is forced to perform at the end. And it is really funny that like these things take on a life of their own, and something that could present as a little corny or a little like, oh God, in the moment is just now what makes this movie endure.
It also reminds me of Tom Cruise at the end of Jerry Maguire, You Complete Me.
Oh yeah.
Like it's also like, it's just like the rom-com speech Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it becomes a shorthand.
Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely. Also, speaking of that, Roger Ebert, love this movie. 3 stars.
Good for Roger. I think Janet Maslin liked it.
Everyone
I think
it was well received at the time.
Yeah.
Good reviews.
And like made decent box office, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. Could this movie work as a 10-episode Netflix show in 2019?
I don't know. Whenever we come up against this question with movies I love, I'm always like, no, because I just think it works as is. But I think yes, actually, with this one. And I say that because I love Lovesick on Netflix.
Yeah.
And has a similar tone.
I just think, to your point, like, give us a Richard Curtis streaming empire.
Yeah.
Like, does this particular story need 10 hours? Probably not, though possibly they could spend more time together, to shout out Craig's point. But like, the strength of this movie is that you also want to live in the world.
Yeah, give me a Notting Hill show. What else is happening there?
And that's kind of to Netflix and TV. You want to spend time with the people. You just want to be immersed in the world. And I would spend 10 hours in this world.
All of his friends could have their own subplots and everything. It could be like Friends, but Notting Hill.
Yes, exactly.
It'd be great. Oh,
right.
Now I'm in.
All right, final question. I realize I don't know the answer to this, so we're going to work through it together. My personal answer. Who won the movie?
I think it's Hugh Grant. He's just so pleasant in this movie, and the most pleasant he's ever been.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's true too, but I'm a Hugh Grant stan. And so I always feel like...
I'm not, though. Like, I like him, and I appreciate his contributions to movies I like.
Yeah.
But he's not like someone I'm like really into. And I just think he's really great and just so likable in this movie and charming.
And it is his movie. He is
The
responding to the Julia Roberts character. And I think she gives like a great performance. It's not a supporting performance, and it really is about her. And I think that she is a winner from this movie.
Sure.
Because of just, it helps people understand her. But I think also Richard Curtis is a winner from this movie because it really cements him as someone you want to watch these stories from. But yeah, I agree.
I think
it's
kills
Hugh Grant.
10 out of 10.
Totally agree.
Love Hugh Grant.
Okay, that's it. This has been Juliet. We did it.
Yes.
This has been Notting Hill.
It's been delightful. What a great hour it's been.
Thanks for listening to The Rewatchables 1999, presented by Luminary Media. We'll be back next week.
The Insider.
The Insider. Great stuff. Thanks, Juliet.
You're welcome.